Hello and welcome to The Promised Land, a show about Manchester United and part of the 90 Min podcast network. I'm Scott Saunders, joined by Rob Blanchette as ever. We've just done an hour, Rob, but we could have done another show and we've only just started recording.
Yes, we just literally did an hour of talking about what we'd like to see, what we would do, why things don't happen in the way that we want them to. And we'll talk about some of that today on the show. But here we are recording, only hours after Manchester United's catastrophic failure in Seville. And it feels all very Liverpool, or is it very Brentford, or whatever we've seen so many times this season where these football players are not good enough for Manchester United. So we're going to kind of dig into some of that today. Obviously, might not sound particularly positive, but we'll try and put a positive spin on some of the good stuff.
Will we?
Yes,
I'm not feeling
I'm going
positive.
to.
I'm not feeling positive. I'm feeling like I've seen this 10 times already this season. And I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, there's time now. I've seen enough. And surely Erik ten Hag has seen enough to know that some of these players cannot go on the journey with him long term. And there's a summer transfer window coming. It's just a case of plastering over all of the problems that we know exist for the next few games. FA Cup coming up this weekend. To be honest, looking at the way Man City are playing at the moment and looking at the way Brighton are playing at the moment, if United don't get through and they can just concentrate on the league and finish in the top four, for me, I think you draw a line under it. Good season. But you have to make sure that now your safety blanket of the Europa League is gone after that awful performance in Seville. They need to ensure that top four is the top priority, and they don't. The word bottle has come up quite a lot of late in relation to Arsenal. United are going to bottle it if they don't finish in the top four. That is simply the case, and we do not want that to happen. Anyway, yes, subscribe to our show wherever you get your pods. We're with you on Tuesdays and Fridays. Usually head over to the channel, like, subscribe, leave a comment for us as well. And tweet us. Our unverified status is confirmed. At _Scott Saunders,
Goodbye,
_Rob_B, and at Promise and MU for the show. We are still Scott and Rob on social media platforms. And I tweeted a fair bit last night watching that absolute shower. Rob, were you vocal, or are you more measured in your you more analytic? Do you do it in like two or three tweets, or do you leave it for the pod?
I didn't do any tweets last night. Zero. I released a couple this morning about the first goal, because I think there's been obviously a lot of conjecture about what the first goal was. Of course, it was a nightmare. But you know what? Also, 5 Sevilla goals over the 2 games were a nightmare, weren't they? All completely preventable. So as a fan, do I feel good about any of it? Of course not, Scott. But then you've got to kind of pick out some of the detail and think, why is it wrong? And is it fixable? And will it be fixed? And I still completely trust this manager, even after all of this, and I think he got some of the tactics wrong at Sevilla, I really do. And I think he got some of the tactics wrong in the first leg. When you pull those players off after an hour, you kind of let the ball drop with some of those substitutions. I think he did it yesterday at halftime as well. I didn't really particularly agree with what he was doing. I think at 1-0, you were kind of winning, losing that game only 1-0 after it was so bad. But I do think, as a football fan, the frustration is just seeing what repeat itself. And one of the things I said on last week's show was that I'm never confident of Man United winning a football match with this centre-back pairing, ever. I wasn't when under Solskjaer. I'm not today. I won't be in the future. And I was saying to you off camera, quite happy Harry Maguire is suspended for the Sunday's game at the FA Cup, even though we got no centre-backs because Luke Shaw is still injured. So all of those things, I think as a football fan, yeah, they're not good. But I think from a more moderate view, there are things that this manager has done this year that have taken Man United on massively forward. I cannot believe we're third. I can't believe it. And we might not end up third with these 2 centre-backs. And I'm not really blaming Lindelof. I'm definitely blaming Maguire more. I think yesterday that pass, we can talk about that a little bit in a minute, but the leadership from the captain is not good enough, and his football is not good enough, and he needs to go. He needs to leave the football club. You need a centre-back that can do it. But it's just the same cracks. It felt like the ghost of Solskjaer passed yesterday, seeing those players.
He's got the same players.
Because it's the same players. It doesn't matter how good Ten Hag is, how good the systems are, the future, the signings, all of this. It is what's there. And I said to you off camera, I'll say it again. Clear outs very rarely happen at football clubs. It does happen now and then, but it's rare. They only do it as a fire sale. But there are players here that really shouldn't be in your squad. And that is the problem, because as soon as you lose 1, 2 or 3 of your good players, this Man United team becomes the 12th best team in England or something like that. And therefore, you're not going to progress in Europe.
You mentioned criticism of Ten Hag there. I think that what you can maybe criticize him for, although it's not entirely fair, is playing the way that he wants with the tools that he has. That's probably on the manager. I don't blame him for that. But, watching Harry Maguire being unable to just pivot and turn on a pass, is just not good enough. And I think we'll talk about Harry Maguire on today's episode. Nothing to prove, Harry Maguire says in public. He has nothing to prove. He's
nothing to prove to me. Well, I know he's not good enough. You've got nothing to prove, mate. Yeah,
and Rob is very much in camp. Don't blame De Gea. I got a bit of stick for it last night for suggesting.
No,
it was Maguire's fault.
It's Maguire's fault. I'm not in the don't blame De Gea. I blame all of them, but I think with De Gea, plays that ball to any of the other normal centre-backs with normal faculties is not a problem. It's the correct ball. You're playing through a triangle trap. It goes to the centre-back. He only just has let the ball run through his legs, turn around, and you got 60 yards of space. That's not De Gea's fault. I'm sorry, it's not the goalkeeper's fault in that thing. But De Gea cannot pass the ball particularly well. And I think the third goal was more about what David De Gea's feet are like, which show you, isn't it, that he's just not very good at kicking it.
Yeah, we'll look at a bit of who's to blame today, because that's a favourite question in the 90-min realm. Who is to blame? We have a content series. I've done 4 Man United who is to blame articles over the past 5 years at varying points. Always tongue in cheek. That's the kind of thing that we do. But we'll look at, did last night change the manager's mind on any players? And obviously we know that Ten Hag and David De Gea, we know that David De Gea is close to signing an extension on his contract. There are some fans and some looking at it suggesting that this is necessary and it's the right decision because he's top of the clean sheets league in the Premier League. What a goalkeeper. There are others who think perfectly natural time to move a player on who doesn't fit what you are trying to do. Rob's in one side, I'm on the other. So I'm sure
I don't know if we are. I don't know if we are. I think it's more to do with what the manager sees as the priorities. It's not really I know David Hayes not very good at his feet. I do content every week saying it, but then why are we surprised when things happen with his feet? Like, you have to base things around a more holistic approach. That's what I'm saying. And I think there is a reason why this manager's going to give him a contract. We said before, let him go, didn't we? Because then you go buy a goalkeeper that fits what you want to do. But I think one of the debates we'll have today is, can you buy multiple players and sell multiple players all in one big go? And my view on it is that from the evidence, we don't see that happen at football clubs very, very, very often. And I'm not completely convinced we'll see it at Man United this year, where you maybe do the Ranić change, the 10 in, 10 out or something like that, something radical. Football clubs are conservative businesses. They are not radicals. That's the only thing I'm saying about De Gea. That's why he's getting a contract.
Just to dig up and dig into what we were talking about off camera, I'm suggesting that I don't think a club like Man United should be impossible or unable to shift 6 players out for money / release and bring 6 in. And they don't all have to be 70 million players, is what I'm saying as well.
Yeah.
That is the kind of evolution. They bought 7. They bought 7 over the course of the season. They've got 7 or 8 out. They haven't raised a lot of money, but there's players in that team who can fetch money, because we know that there's Premier League interest in a number of players. But anyway, where do we want to go first? Where should we go?
Well, let's start with the pass and finish that one off with the Maguire. Or did we do that?
Yeah, we did it, but there's probably more in it.
We kind of did it. I think what we saw last night is how this Man United team reacts without a brain in it. So, what did you lose last night? Bruno Fernandes. So let's give Bruno some love here, because I think we always get on me about not giving Bruno enough love. You see what Bruno gives you in a game like this, because Man United had no creativity at all. Absolutely no creativity. And this is why you're going to have to buy creative players in the future. And that's a big, I think, a historical issue at Man United that you need to go on for a long time. But no Varane, no Martinez. So those three players, Scott, you might as well have not had any players out there. That's how bad it felt, wasn't it? Is that there was no brain on the ball. Very hard for Eriksen to operate. Eriksen kind of all over the place trying to get on the ball and not being able to make the pass. Casemiro, probably his worst game for United, would we say? Up there with the Anfield game. Like, just looked laboured, didn't look switched on. And that back four, you saw the manager making those little switches at fullback, because I think he was concerned about the out ball, which was Maguire to Wan-Bissaka. So he tried to heal that by swapping them, and then he pulled Wan-Bissaka. And I actually think Wan-Bissaka was the only one in that back five who kind of, to me, looked aggressive and on it. So these are the issues. And I think that this is how Man United in these weeks ahead, why I felt so bad about losing the centre-backs. Not just because you're losing a World Cup winner or two World Cup winners. That's what they are now, isn't it? Of course, with Martinez. But you're losing your brains out there. And that is a problem. That's a much bigger problem than can the goalkeeper pass the ball. So I think when I look at this in the weeks ahead, I'm only worried about top four. Like, I don't feel particularly worried about Wembley on Sunday. I'm kind of like, well, if you win that, great. You get a Wembley, you might win it, you might not win it. I'm worried about top four, and I'm still worried about top four.
There's also the distinct possibility in the FA Cup final you get absolutely embarrassed by Man City as they go on to win a treble if you put in a performance like that.
That's it. But at least, like, if you do get to the FA Cup final, then you could create a bit of history. Like, stopping teams winning trebles is what Man United have done over the years. United did it to Liverpool famously in the 70s when that Liverpool team were on to win a clean sweep of everything. And Man United, a bad Man United team in the late 70s, beat them at Wembley, far inferior to Liverpool. So it can happen. So I'm not too worried about that. You might get hammered by City. But I just think it's more about how you now navigate every game going forward. Like all these Premier League games towards the end of the season, you've got to somehow have a brain out there. And I don't know where it comes from. I really don't. Obviously, Bruno will come back into your midfield. But players got injuries. You can see that they were carrying last night. Luke Shaw's got an injury. Rashi comes back early, but still definitely injured. Whoa, it's a tough gig for Ten Hag. It really is, because you can have all the tactics in the world, but if your players have not got the football intelligence, very, very difficult. You mentioned at the top of the show, should you be playing out from the back? I don't think the manager's ever going to change that. He's not going to say just kick it long. He's just not going to do it. Managers don't do that. But it's a difficult gig, isn't it?
There's a balance between having your ideals and just getting by.
Yeah, like again, just
and he did adapt in the early weeks of the season. When Christian Eriksen got closed down by Brentford, he changed his distribution patterns.
He did. And you might have to go somewhere towards that, but you've spent weeks and months doing things that have been largely successful, which is why maybe there is a fear of moving away from it or admitting to the players that you should now move away from it because of them. So that's always, I think, the philosophical issue at football clubs and why managers don't always change things. Like we will say, managers who are at the bottom of the division, well, why are you just not doing this? Why? Because then you won't be bottom. But these managers carry on doing it until they get sacked because they believe in it. So I don't think, like, Ten Hag's not in that place, but he's got to find a way now, isn't he, at the back? Harry Maguire should be able to turn on that ball from David De Gea. I'm sorry. There's nothing around him. People were saying that it was a short pass and all of that. It wasn't. Maguire just has to be cute, let the ball run through his legs.
Harry, you just said there that Harry Maguire...
And turn around.
You said that Harry Maguire has to be cute. Would I ever use the word cute in relation to Harry Maguire?
I wouldn't. You wouldn't.
Never, ever in my life.
Jose Mourinho did. Jose Mourinho wanted Harry Maguire because he wanted someone who was cuter on the ball. So Harry Maguire supposedly built his whole career, Scott, and being the most expensive defender of all time, around being a ball-playing, progressing centre-back with really good ball-progressing centre-back stats, even in a bad Man United team under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. So do not tell me he cannot turn on the ball. I know he's rusty. I think that is the excuse. He's not played enough games and he's rusty. But I was just as upset when the ball smashes him in the face in the first leg and goes in, because get your head out the way, mate. That's what you have to do. You have to be alive to it. And that pass there from De Gea to him and then out to Wan-Bissaka is because you're not alive. It's the brain. It's not about your physicality. So he can let that ball run through his legs, and there's no Sevilla player. They're trying to set the trap and pull on him, but you just turn and then there's 3 Man United players free in front of you. Just pass it to one of them. So I blame Maguire of that, but of course the blame game is pointless. But I think it also does show maybe this manager, maybe that was the straw that broke the camel's back, seeing that last night and thinking, well, that's a bad moment, and that really defined the whole game for us and took us on a journey away from our game plan. And I think that's true. I think that is it. And I think that comes from Maguire's feet.
That's it. That's ultimately where I sit on it, right? So I got a lot of stick last night, actually, for suggesting that David De Gea should have recognised that he's not passing to Lisandro Martinez. People were saying, oh, that's ridiculous, and it's kind of the same angle as this conversation. Harry Maguire should be able to do it. He cost 80 million quid. He should be able to do it.
Yeah.
David De Gea has played with Harry Maguire for 4 or 5 years. He knows what he can and can't do. He must know. He must see that there's 3 players around him closing him from all different angles. He must see that.
Yeah.
And you have to make a call in that situation. Can that player do it? What I will say, people are very keen to suggest that it's only Harry Maguire's fault. For me, it's not. It's both players. And my takeaway from that is that both players are not for this team moving forward. In 3 years, in 2 years' time, in 2 summers' time, both of those players should not be starting for Man United because they are not capable of playing in the way that Erik ten Hag wants to play. It's a case of David De Gea might sign his contract, but he's not going to be in there for 7-8 years, in my opinion.
I agree.
He can do it.
I agree with that. And David De Gea signs a new contract, whether it's 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, whatever, is that we are going to be having the same conversation next season. That's what it is. Yeah. So that's on the manager. It's not on David De Gea. It's on the manager, first and foremost. He's got to decide those things and decide what's absolutely hell-bent must happen now to help the team move forward, and bits that maybe he thinks he can postpone, because I think that's why De Gea is getting a contract. But you just said there that in the moment that he should decide not to play that ball to Maguire because it's Maguire, they would have spent, Scott, 2 or 3 days together practicing that triangle trap. Yeah, they would have done. So what they do on the training ground, 3 players coming from converging with a striker at the top coming towards the goalkeeper. And what the manager would have been saying to doing is play the straight ball out to the centre-back who's got space, not to the fullbacks, because the fullbacks with the wide players are actually closer to those players, and you play that straight ball. If De Gea in that moment decides to go long, and if he does that, there's no goal, is there? We all go, well, all right, we'll forget about that. That's not what the manager then says to the player. The manager says you should have played that ball to Maguire. He's the captain and he's supposed to be a ball player. So this is all horses for courses. This is the problem, is that the best thing to do is just not have Maguire there ever. And that's what I said last week. And I'm going to stick with that. And I think you're going to have to sell him to get better. You know, you have to almost get worse to get better. But I think in that moment, I don't think De Gea can almost make that call, because it's a simple pass. He's made that pass all season long, and United have played out from the back in those scenarios pretty well. The metrics support that. So to our eyes, why we always see that bad error, and I think the third goal is really the bad error when you see De Gea coming out and fluffing that and like, just don't do it. That first pass, we can say, no, don't make it, De Gea, but his manager will be telling him to make it, and that is more important to the player than what we think.
Yep, completely agree. But like I addressed at the top of the show, Erik ten Hag had David De Gea and Harry Maguire at Brentford, and so it didn't work.
Yeah. And we've had Maguire for a long time, and we know that this player cannot do certain things. And we know that De Gea can't do certain things. But the big £1 million question has got to be then, if we think it's that bad and fans think it's that bad, why is this manager giving him a contract? And there are reasons for that. And the reasons for that is that you just can't get rid of everyone all at once. But we're going to have that conversation as well, aren't we?
Maybe not today, but yeah.
In future weeks, definitely.
In future weeks. What I will say, though, and what I think is... This is another issue that I have with De Gea. Like, and this is maybe a criticism from me of Erik ten Hag. Like, obviously, I'm not in the changing room. Erik ten Hag sees... I think he sees David De Gea as a senior player. He sees the personality. He sees clean sheets. He sees former Premier League champion. 10 years ago. He sees, all of this experienced player, senior head. The mental weakness in this team bats you around the head every few weeks. We've seen it in Brentford. We've seen it at Liverpool. We've seen it at Man City. We've seen it at Aston Villa. We've seen it in this game. We've seen it in others this season as well. When Man United, they have not beaten, they're going to Tottenham on Thursday. They have not taken a point against any top half Premier League team in away fixtures in the Premier League this season.
Yeah.
That is mentality weakness to me.
Yeah.
And as much as Erik ten Hag wants to say, David De Gea, he's this, he's that to me, this squad is weak mentally. They have proven that they can get it right in certain situations and they can react quite well to performances like this. But the performances like this keep happening. And how do you rid yourself of that? Simply put, for me, there are players in this team who are not mentally able to deal with it. And that is another issue why I wouldn't renew De Gea. I'm not only picking on De Gea. There's a ton of these players in this team, and we've seen it quite a lot. But I think in order to shift that around, you need to just essentially just replace these players. I don't think these players are comfortable enough to. Lisandro Martinez is the difference, right? That is the difference between Harry Maguire and Lisandro Martinez. He is able to take that under pressure and not really care because he knows his technical ability will back him through it. David De Gea isn't that. Harry Maguire isn't that. Aaron Wan-Bissaka isn't that. Let's be honest. He's had a resurgence in the second half of the season, but at the start of the season, everybody said he should be sold. You need to be ruthless. You need to be ruthless. And for me, don't renege on that ruthlessness. I think that is going to end up hamstringing United longer term.
Yeah, I think Erik ten Hag as an individual has proved through his career that he's pretty ruthless, like in terms of how he sets his teams up to play, mitigating issues and kind of pushing on strengths. I do think that you just said they talked about like mental toughness, and I do think there's a massive issue at Man United, has been for a very long time. Leadership, toughness, and all of this is that after Brentford, and then when Man United went on that kind of much better run, one of the reasons why you didn't lose games massively was David De Gea. David De Gea saved you in a lot of those games. So I think that builds up trust with the manager, even though David De Gea can't pass the ball out. So when we are expecting to see David be a lot better with the ball at feet, there's no kind of point with that. We know he's never going to be that kind of player. But I think this is the part of the problem. As you're saying there in the dressing room, that's the bit we don't see. I think it's pretty evident on a football pitch that when Harry Maguire is the captain of the football team and he's on there, and he's pointing at people and going, mate, over there, you take him. That no one is listening to him at all.
Oh, you could see the way Anthony reacted to his goal the other day.
That's a failure of leadership from that one player. I think what we see, and the manager has spoken about this a lot, is that through this season, and let's be honest, season ends today, Scott. Yeah, it's finished. Let's say it's finished today. You came third, you won a trophy, and no one expected anything like that this year. Like no one in terms of that level. When you look back over the body of work through the year and the manager's going through all the detail, for him, De Gea is probably one of the surprises, because I'm sure when he walked in the door on day one, he probably thought this goalkeeper's going to do nothing for me. And in fact, he's coming to the end of his contract, might have to bin him. You know, Dean Henderson doesn't even want to turn up for training, you know, because he wants to go to another football club. Goodbye, Dino, you know. But De Gea has saved United multiple times this year, and he might end the season. If it ended today, he ends the season as the Golden Glove winner. So we can talk about his failures until we're blue in the face, and I agree with all of them. He is not your sweeper keeper. He can never be that. But I think that is a holistic problem with how Man United move the ball from back to front, sideways, from midfield, from the attack, from the wider areas. There are bigger issues. I would say that maybe the issues are the ball players. So if your ball players you can add more ball players to ball players and add work rate and add mentality, then I think you move on. And that's why I think Maguire, he's supposed to be a ball player, Scott. That's his profile of player. He's not a ball player. He's a great big forklift truck that can't turn around in a circle. And it's like 200 grand you're paying this guy, and he's the most expensive centre back of all time, and he cannot let the ball run through his legs.
Ultimately, right? You're looking at Harry Maguire there, and you're saying he should be able to do this.
Yeah,
but every single Man United fan will tell you, and you'll probably say you'll agree with this. Every single Man United fan will tell you that Ed Woodward in charge of transfers was an absolute disaster.
Completely.
Whose signing was that? Ed Woodward.
Yeah.
They are suffering
Yeah.
a hangover from all the business that they did.
Of course.
All last season. The signings that I know your jury's out on Malacia a little bit. Ten Hag signings generally have been safe and sturdy. Weghorst is convenience, obviously, whatever. Sabitzer, jury's out on him as well. But generally, Ten Hag is having to manage players who've been bought by a different regime. And he needs to, it's obvious. Harry Maguire was adjudged by Ed Woodward and the scouting team and whoever it was in charge of transfers at that time. And Jose Mourinho, who's a very, very different type of manager to Erik ten Hag, that he's a ball player. He ain't. He's not. We need to stop judging them through these lenses and call a spade a spade.
He's a ball player for England.
In a back three.
In a back three. Exactly. Different tactics, different manager. So I think the thing is, profiles always get a bit skewed because they always are overlapping kind of skill sets and weaknesses. But I think with Maguire, he's supposed to be good at 2 or 3 things very, very specifically that get him out of trouble in terms of like his lack of pace or all these things. I do think that not playing games can affect your mentality and can affect your form. You become rusty. So I think that is valid.
You wouldn't admit.
But we've seen it enough times. Yeah, this is the thing. We've seen it. I saw one person tweet that like we've kind of seen 200 appearances where we know that the axis of De Gea and Lindelof and Maguire, and I don't think Lindelof was bad last night, even though United lost this football match, that it doesn't work. So like, we've had to go back to it because of injuries. I don't think this manager is stupid enough to think that this is any kind of solution. This is why, as bad as I feel about the results, Scott, I don't feel bad about the rest of it as badly, even though I know you definitely need new players, because I think this process takes time. It took Jurgen Klopp a year and a half to get anywhere near to getting his squad together at Liverpool. Pep Guardiola went through a ton of players in year 1 to try and make it work, started to trim the squad, started to buy other players at bigger value. It takes time. Arsenal at the top of the table, it's been a 3-year project. People think it happened like that. Click my fingers at my mic. It didn't. It took 3 years. That is, 36 months. So we're now 10 months into this project. And I do think that Ten Hag knows all of this. I don't think Ten Hag is fooled that his goalkeeper will be a sweeper keeper next year. I don't think he thinks Harry Maguire will get any quicker next year. But I do think you have to get the right targets in from the football club. And maybe that's the next step now. Go buy the next 2 or 3 that then allow you to maybe get rid of the next 4 or 5. And then you can start doing it in a window. We see, Scott, we've still got the same regime at the helm here. That's still the Glazers and their people doing your business. All we can hope is that Erik ten Hag keeps scoring on his hit rate of good transfers. And yet there'll still be plenty of people, Scott, that tell you that Anthony's been a bust. Plenty of United fans. Jadon Sancho came the year before. Jadon Sancho's not been a success. So there are still players that I think we all believe in or want to see carry on in the team. But the evidence says at the moment, after 12 months, 24 months, whatever you want to call it, these players are not helping you. So there are bigger questions there, I think, than just Harry Maguire, if you know what I mean.
There is a ton of players in there. Let us know in the comment section or on Twitter, @_Scott Saunders, @_Rob_B, @PromiseAndMU for the show. Let us know who is to blame. Let us know who is to blame. Would you renew David De Gea's contract on £200,000 a week? This is another point I want to make on David De Gea, right?
I wouldn't.
I wouldn't either.
No.
But they might, and they probably will.
They will. We know they will.
Right? The thing is, we just had this conversation about David De Gea and needing to replace him long term. If you give him a contract for $200K a week, although the suggestion is that it's based on performance and these type of things, but they haven't come to an agreement yet. They managed to get Luke Shaw over the line, but they haven't come to this agreement yet. So there must be stuff they're still working out. If, let's say, David De Gea renews for 2 or 3 years on $200K a week, how do you replace him in those 2 or 3 years on $200,000 a week? How do you turf him out? How do you put him on the bench?
It's difficult. I don't really know if you can. I think
that suggests your problem is going to remain for that amount of time because David De Gea isn't going to do it.
But this also maybe goes into the discussions that are being said behind closed doors that maybe we're not privy to. So I think what this manager will probably say to De Gea, a little bit of hearsay here, but I think he will say to him, we'll give you a new contract, but you might not be the number one in years to come. So you want your money, we'll pay you your money. You get your 200 grand. I know you said off camera, if he gets 5 years, you're going to like, jump off the top
my
of
head against the wall.
Yeah, exactly. Or something like that. Yeah. And I understand that totally because it kind of ties you in. What Man United think quite often with contracts is that we get them under contract and we can sell them. We can get something for them. So
you ain't selling David De Gea on 200k a week. I'm sorry.
You're not selling David De Gea on 200 grand a week. But what if the deal, Scott, is 120? Would you still sign it? I wouldn't.
120 should be your starting goalkeeper wage.
Yes, I think so. And I think you probably can get a starting goalkeeper for 120, but you might have to pay a really, really big fee and agents' fees on top of that and everything else that goes with it if you want the goalkeeper that you really want. There's some really good goalkeepers out there. This all really comes down to whether the manager thinks that goalkeeper is priority 1, 2, or 3. If it's somewhere,
let's play this game now. Let's play this game now.
Let's do it. Come on then, Scott. Let's play spin the player bottle. Let's see who the priority is.
You play the game in the comments as well. Go over to YouTube and leave a comment under this video. How many positions, right? We did this before the show. I think they need 6, right? I'm saying 3 first-team players and 3 squad players. Mm-hmm. What is your order of priority? I'm gonna go first. Striker 1, central midfielder 6 or 8. Somebody who can do both. 2. Goalkeepers 3 for me. Right back is 5. Centre back is 4. And then striker is 6. Other striker. Younger option.
See, I don't think you're a million miles off. Like, I really don't. So what would mine be? So striker, definitely, but it's got to be an elite striker. Like we are talking £100 million bracket. If you want to be serious, don't be going and getting us, the next Weghorst or someone like that, or the next Martial who gets injured.
Would you settle there? Are you talking Osimhen Kane, or would you settle there for a Højlund from Atalanta or a Ramos from Benfica?
No, I wouldn't settle for them. They're good players, those two, but I think that this is where you might end up. Because if you do go down that road where you will spend 50, 60 on a new goalkeeper, then you might not be able to spend 100 to 150 million on the prime striker. It's the truth. So this is all about balancing the books. And this is not the Todd Bowley world that he lives in. And this is not the Qatar world where there's unlimited money. As it stands today, we're talking in terms of Glazonomics. So this is it. You're a football club with £600 million of debt carrying on you in your profit and loss. That's just the truth. So let's do the order. So it's for number 1 is definitely a striker, and it has to be a great striker because it has to be someone that pushes the needle, not just in terms of scoring goals, which is of course very, very important. It's about the press, it's about energy, and it's about intelligence. Harry Kane. So there's your first player. Okay. Number 2 for me is central midfield, because for me, it feels like every week I talk about creativity. So I want a creative central midfielder that can run around a lot as well. It's got plenty of energy. That's got Fred energy, but hasn't got Fred feet. Yeah. So is that someone like kind of De Jong? I don't know. Like, we love De Jong, don't we? We've talked him up.
We said on a previous show it's Declan Rice profile.
But it's more like Declan Rice. But can you get Declan Rice and a top striker in the same window? It doesn't have to be
Declan Rice. Is what I'm saying. It doesn't have to be
Declan Rice-ish. Like, he scored an amazing goal, didn't he, yesterday as well? So there we go. So they're the first 2, and I think those 2 are way ahead of everything in terms of priority. So, like, if you do nothing, buy those 2. Get yourself a top striker and a top midfielder, and you will go up levels quickly. Yeah, you will. Number 3. Did you say goalkeeper's 3 for you?
I would say goalkeeper's 3, and I'd also put it in that tier as it's third in the list order. But yeah. I don't draw the line at 2. I draw the line after 3.
Right. Third for me is centre back, because Varane is made of glass, like I said last week. So you're seeing in real time now the issues with the end of the season, but also various points in the season as well. That if you take either one of Varane out, one of Martinez out, or both of them out, you are like 50 times worse. So you need a centre-back that can help you. Now, that could be a kid, could be a 21-year-old development project who's really good with their feet and really quick, and someone that you can cover. And then you bin off Maguire and you get rid of him and you say, thank you very much, Harry. Good luck in your career at West Ham or wherever you go. Maybe use Harry Maguire as a make weight for Declan Rice. There's another deal we could do. But, you've got these options, but they're, I think, for me, are the three. And the reason why I put those three ahead of a goalkeeper is because on-ball situations are still Man United's problem. And as much as a goalkeeper at the back, who's a sweeper keeper, will improve your on-ball situation from there, in theory, when you look at the metrics and the numbers, it is not saying that you're losing games because of that function. You're losing games because you give the ball away in midfield way too much and you've got no connectivity. And in the game last night where your energy levels are lower for whatever reason, you lose. You go to Anfield and lose 7 with your first choice midfielder, number 6 there, and you still concede 7. So there are reasons for this. So for me, they're the first 3, but number 4 isn't goalkeeper either. And for me, it would then be one of the fullbacks. And I think fullbacks to add to the stock, like you just said there, Wan-Bissaka. I like what I've seen from Wan-Bissaka. I would keep Wan-Bissaka. But the jury is still out on that. I think the jury is definitely out on Malacia. I don't think he's played well at all this season. When you look at his forward functioning metrics, they're really, really bad. I wanted to swear then. They're not good at all. So you kind of look at those 2 fullbacks. And I think you still need a fullback in there that does something different. Yeah, that gives you another option. So they're the first 4. They're all on-ball players. Yeah. Goalkeeper.
Before you go on. You put centre-back third. Yeah, I agree. I think they seriously do need a right-sided centre-back alternative to Varane or somebody who can play both. Do you not get a third option of playing out from the back in a new goalkeeper, whereas you keep 2 if you have De Gea plus a centre-back?
If you look at, let's take the 2 real primary Premier League goalkeepers that everyone always references. Of course, that's Ederson at City, who is absolutely wondrous, as good as outfield players with the ball at his feet. And let's look at Alisson and what Alisson does now. So Alisson's part of a really, really bad Liverpool defence. Yeah, really bad, that tried to play out from the back. And this year, they don't look so good. And when you look at Alisson's outball, what he plays to the defence, it's completely changed over the last 2 or 3 years. Ederson, on the other hand, has also changed some of his game and has actually taken it away. You watch what Ederson does now. He actually passes the ball from much deeper in his box because he's got the ability to do that. Not many goalkeepers are of their level. Like if you're going to go into the marketplace, there's not a ton who are close to those 2 guys' stats with the ball at their feet. But the stats also show that those 2 make mistakes with the ball at their feet. It's just that because they're so good at it, we kind of go, that's all right, because players make mistakes. I think when you look at De Gea will never be an elite goalkeeper with the ball at his feet. But he might be better, Scott, with these. And this is what I think managers always fight with, is that do they want a goalkeeper? Like De Gea is going to be a massive part of this. If he wins the Golden Gloves, it will be him and the 2 centre-backs, not the 2 we saw last night, but obviously the main 2. And those 3 as a function this year have worked really well, both passing the ball out from the back. They haven't lost it a whole bunch. And that's about the mix and the chemistry between the 3. Would I like to say goodbye to David De Gea and buy a new goalkeeper? Absolutely, yes. But I do think that Erik ten Hag doesn't think it's one of the top 3 priorities because he can just give this goalkeeper a new contract.
Do you think that's changed after last night?
Potentially, but do we know any more about David De Gea after last night? Let's be honest. I think we're kidding ourselves. When these bad car crashes happen and we go, oh, we only had 3 wheels on the night. We know it. We knew it before when we got in the car and belted up and went off on it. We know it's got 3 wheels. Why are we debating that there's a problem? So we know there's a problem, but does this manager then think it is as big a problem as striker, central midfield, and centre back? I don't believe he does. And for me, not either. I look at those 3 positions, and if you incrementally made them better for however you do it, whoever you choose, and you do it at the right end, the right elite level, this year you've come 3rd or 4th, maybe 5th, but let's hope you come top 4 with a really, really dysfunctional bunch of what I would call kindly Muppets at times. So you've got these players and you still actually were pretty good overall. So that's where I sit with it. And I think that if you go get Kane or an Osimhen, we can argue that to a blue in the face, a central midfielder like a Declan Rice, you may get Frankie de Jong, a centre back, we've talked about Kim, we've talked about Timber. So I think Timber's a really good option because he solves the right back and the centre back issue, doesn't he? You could go make these smart signings and go from a team that expects to come 3rd, 4th, or 5th, like we are now, and start to come 2nd and 1st. And if you get a striker, I said this about Martial, didn't I, last week? You had Martial in your team all season long, Man United own a title race. That's how these margins are, whether you got Maguire in your squad or not. So, like, this is the thing. You will get rid of players. There'll be natural turnover. And I think you see that there's 4, 5, 6 in this squad that don't belong here under this manager. They just don't. I think this manager's discovered that with playing them and seeing it. But you've got to buy the right players in. You can't get away with doing what United have done in years gone by and going, Lukaku, 90 million, scores goals at Everton. Yeah, that fits. Oh, it doesn't fit any of the stylistic things you want to do. Oh, right. Okay. Well, maybe we'll sell him in a couple of years. Kind of remind me when Man United bought Juan Sebastian Veron years ago, my favorite non-Man United player of all time. And he came to Man United and I was overjoyed. I was at that game at Old Trafford in his debut in tears because I was like, we've got Veron, the best midfielder in the world. And Fergie bought him when he had the best midfielder in the world and didn't need him. That was Fergie. You know, so this is how I look at United now. This manager deserves the best, but he might have to work around it and find ways, because there are 6 positions, as you're saying there, that you do need to address. Whether you can address it all at once and get it right, I don't know.
I know this is kind of, if you're pro De Gea, right? I'm sorry, but I keep coming back to this, and something I just have not mentioned yet, right? We've been talking about De Gea's distribution the entire show. He has more weaknesses than that.
Coming for the ball,
like, and people in the comments, like, feel free to get engaged and involved. If enough people watching who are not involved get the shivers from David De Gea dealing with crosses, from his authority, all of these different things. If enough people outside feel like that, what must the players think on the pitch? Does that inspire confidence in them? And I realize that I would like to preface this with David De Gea is a legend, an absolute legend. Clean sheet record, right? You know, been here 10 years plus, more than that, 12 years. Won the Premier League. Great guy. Likes the same music I like. You know, it's like, great guy. But what I'm saying is, Ruthlessness is everything that Manchester United have been lacking in the last 10, 12. You could even probably go back to 2008. Tevez, maybe. Maybe you go that far. They haven't been that ruthless ever since then. You know? And that was not like, that was Tevez's decision in the end. I don't know why I'm talking about this, but they have not been ruthless. And I feel like this is, and I'm not alone here, this is probably the perfect opportunity to be ruthless. And there's other players that you need to be ruthless with, but I just don't see the sense in it. I don't.
Okay, I will play devil's advocate with that. Yeah, we talk about ruthlessness when this manager has come in, taking his set of players and taking them to top 4 and won a trophy. So the thing is, to us, as fans, we see these things, we get the jitters about them, and we don't like them. And you're right to say, do players see that as well? Well, yes, they do, completely, because football is a holistic game. You do feel those things on a football pitch the same way that fans does. The only thing that matters, Scott, is what Eric Ten Hag thinks. It's the only thing that really matters. And our game as journalists is to predict why the manager thinks certain things and doesn't think other things. So, like, I'm with you on all of that. And you're right, De Gea is a legend. You know, I've called him before the best goalkeeper I've ever seen at Manchester United, more than Peter Schmeichel. I get a lot of stick for that. But I'm not in the let's keep De Gea camp. I'm really not. But I am in the camp of, why is De Gea staying at the football club, and why are they negotiating with him, and why is this manager kind of sticking with him when a lot of people are saying don't stick with him? The manager will put his neck on the block on this. That's what it comes down to. Because football fans don't have to do that, Scott. We don't have to do that. We don't put our neck on the block and put our jobs on the line when it comes to these things. It's the manager and the players that do those things when they're out on a football pitch or when they're coaching them. And I think that when you look at the De Gea thing, De Gea's issues there about coming for the ball were there when he was 18. They've always been there. Yeah. It's not suddenly today we're talking about these things and going, oh, this is a brand new issue. It's not. But he is not going to be Ederson. He's not going to be Alisson. And I think it's arguable to say that as a shot stopper in general, that he's a better shot stopper than those two. Yeah, because I don't know what I think one of those two players at Man United in the last 3 or 4 years would have looked really bad goalkeepers with the defenses that we've had. And De Gea has gone through his whole career, Scott, saving Man United multiple times. So this is not about, like, you talk about ruthlessness. And I think all businesses outside of football and inside of football, you've got to be ruthless. You've got to look at stuff and you've got to think about football, players that help you and all these things. Get rid of players that don't help you. But I think sometimes, Scott, it's a little bit misguided because it's not about that. It's about how do you make it work, not how do you blow it up. So I think that Ten Hag could blow this up. Like he's got valid reasons to really bin 10 players. And that's what Rangnick said. And Rangnick was right. And I'm going to stick with that forever. Rangnick said, you need 10 signings. And he got sacked because of it. This manager's not going to tell this board he needs 10 signings because he'll get sacked or he'll end up out the door. They'll blame him. Mourinho said something similar. He needed 8 signings and they went, you're not getting 1 and you're off. Bye. So there's always got to be a bit of diplomacy, and ruthlessness has to come through structure and through process. And yes, I wouldn't give De Gea a contract. You wouldn't give De Gea a contract. And there are reasons for that. But the manager has to know that if he's not giving this goalkeeper a contract, that he's getting 60 million to spend on a new goalkeeper.
Rangnick said you need 10 signings. Since then, and I'm not including goalkeepers, they've signed 7.
Yeah.
And they've also let go Pereira, Bailly, Chong, doesn't count. Mata, Lingard, Matic, Pogba, Cavani, and Ronaldo should have gone last summer as well. And when he's at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
But that's natural turnover, would you say? Like, I don't think that's ruthlessness. I don't think someone went, we've got to get Chong out of the football club. Like, this is the thing. This is the only differentiation I'm trying to make on it is that I think you get natural movement with contracts and stuff like that. It's a bit like picking a team, isn't it? You've only got X amount of players to work with, whether they're good or bad. You've got to work with them. But I think when you look at those players going out the door, I think this summer we'll have more of that. I really do. Like, let's do it now. Phil Jones. So we know Phil Jones won't be at the football club. I think the likes of Chong won't be returning. So maybe can you add those in? Like the Tuanzebes of the world? Bailly, like gone completely? Is Bailly gone on a permanent? Or
no, that option is not being triggered, so they have to sell him.
Alex Telles will be gone. So I think Donny van der Beek will be gone. I think you could say Anthony Martial, the way that his body falls apart, might be
difficult
gone.
to shift. Like, I think Anthony Martial will be difficult.
Be difficult to shift, but if you give him to a club for 10 million, I think someone might take him or as part of a deal. So that's 7 already through not being ruthless, but just letting contracts be done. Get the contracts done, move them out of the football club, and be happy with it.
You add your ruthlessness and efficiency. De Gea, 375 off the wage bill. Harry Maguire, interest from Italy and Premier League clubs. Scott McTominay, interest from a ton of Premier League clubs.
So you have to be ruthless with individual positions.
Premier League clubs.
Yeah. So
that's 10 players.
So it's 10 players and you might lose them, but then it gets sold through, obviously, our media channels as clear outs, and it's not a clear out. It's just natural turnover. So I think the manager sees that and will wait for that. Yeah. It is, Scott. It is. It's just it's taking the EastEnders out of the subject. Yeah, it's not soap opera. It's a business. So those 10 will go because they're due going, and that's it. And they can't help you. Someone like Pereira has gone to Fulham and absolutely proved that he probably is a 20 to 30 million pound central midfielder, number 10, and he's done that well at Fulham. And he'll probably go to a bigger club next year. And we all went get rid of him for 10 pence. So it does. There are kind of cases there. I don't think ruthlessness is what's wrong with the structure at Man United. I think recruitment and retention from the Glazers is a massive problem, and it's still there whilst they're still there. And I think this manager has to work within certain parameters. As I don't think he's going to look at David De Gea and go, David, your feet are rubbish. I'm going to get ruthless with you, mate. But board, can I have 60 million for a new goalkeeper? No, I can't. What do you mean I've got to start with Jack Butland next season? Oh my God, I didn't realise that, and I've just let David De Gea go. Oh, I'll put the phone down. So that is a real thing in football, and very, very real at Man United. Their recruitment and retention stinks, Scott, for 10 years. That's why you are where you are. And those people are still signing the checks. So ultimately, we are probably, I think, promoting new ownership here. But I also think it's hard for Erik ten Hag. I don't think he can just say to the board, get rid of 10, buy me 10, and we'll be Chelsea and we'll be top 4. Oh, no, we're not. We're 10th. So United top 4 this year. The Glazers are going to be saying, well, what we decided to do last year worked. Aren't we clever? Well, no, the squad still does need change. Of course, we still need signings. There's no doubt about it. Does it boil down to the goalkeeper? Does it? I don't know.
I think it's a lot more important than people make out. But, that's a very, very 50-50 divide. And I think a lot of it comes down to loyalty as well from a lot of people. But
it's mad, isn't it?
Your goalkeeper does not have to cost 60 million.
No.
If you know what you're doing.
Of course, go find the next big thing. But like Man United have never been very good at that in recent times. So like, I think it's a big leap of faith that if you're going to get rid of your primary goalkeeper, and we know what De Gea can and can't do, if you're going to get rid of him, you've got to make sure you know what's coming in, and that is more important. That's ruthlessness. That's being sure of what you're building. Don't just say off you go. Like I think with Paul Pogba, because I think there's similarities here. With Paul Pogba at the end, the issue really was that he was injured. And I think Man United looked at that and went, that's the end of it. Get rid of him. And I think that was the right thing to do. That was ruthless. And I think that was the right thing to do for that player. I think with David De Gea, if you're going to lose your number one, the number one coming in next year cannot be a development project. It can't, because you will lose games because of it. Yeah. So David De Gea, who we've said has saved us a load of times, but has all these issues, going to win a Golden Gloves, and we'll let him go on a free and all of this. You've got to make sure that if you're bringing Costa in for 60 million, that Costa ticks every box that you want, and that Costa's going to have Edison-like metrics from the back. Doesn't always work like that. Doesn't. You get fooled sometimes by.
To me that the shot stopping from David De Gea is top, because I've definitely seen it floating around that it's not.
I think it depends what kind of shot it is. So long shots, he's really, really poor with, right? He's really like people score lots of goals from him from the edge of the box. And I think you can say, yeah, but when you look at the metrics for other goalkeepers, he's absolutely on par with those kind of big moments. So even last night, Scott, when it was all going wrong, you see that one with that ball bounced in front of the box? Yeah, the 6-yard box, and he gets his body in front of it, and then it's a big scramble. Yeah, he's really good at that stuff. Like the metrics do support that. But I do think it's not about metrics, is it? It's not just about metrics. I know I highlight them a lot. It's about trust. And it's about what you can put out there and can't put out there. And you think that's a bigger problem with De Gea. As you said, I think 50-50 is fair. I don't understand this fan element of being faithful to players. Like, what? Like, you're faithful to the badge and the club. That's what you're faithful to. That's who you support. The players come and go at the end of the day. De Gea will be gone one day, either sooner or later. If you can get better in that position, Scott, do it. If you don't think you can get better without really spending the money, then don't do it. And that's kind of as easy as it gets. If it means that you can't sign Harry Kane or Osimhen because you change your goalkeeper, do you keep De Gea, Scott? Tell me.
That's very hypothetical.
Very hypothetical, but if that is what the manager's being told by the board...
I've just told you my priority order.
Yes, yeah. So
I would spend more on a goalkeeper if it meant you didn't need to buy a right back. I would do that. I would take that risk. And I've already said my priority order is striker, central midfielder. So your answer there is no. Mm-hmm. However, not every goalkeeper costs 60 million.
They don't. But I don't know anyone below. Let's play that game very quickly. Who would you buy?
I would even take David Raya.
Okay. What do we reckon he's going to? He's in the final year of his contract.
Brentford doing the posturing of 40.
Okay.
They're doing the posturing of 40.
Yep.
Being realistic.
Yep.
A good negotiating team guessing for 25.
If that
in the last year of his contract.
If that dream scenario could happen and Man United wouldn't pull trigger on that, I'd back it 100%. So if you could do that for 25, 30 million, I like David Raya. I think he's a really, really good goalkeeper. But when you put his metrics side by side with De Gea in lots of categories, he's not wildly better. Yeah, he's just different. So managers do look at these things, and clubs do look at these things, and recruitment teams do look at these things. So
you also have Dean Henderson in there. I'm not saying bring him back, but somebody will pay for him. Anyway.
Dean Henderson, he'll tell you straight to your face that like he thought he was going to be Man United's number one and all of these things. But his metrics showed that he wasn't better on the deck with David De Gea. He was mildly better, like a little bit, and he made other mistakes and couldn't make shots that were like 4 yards from him and were going in the back of the net, and he wasn't making saves. So there's always it's always horses.
Are never a thing. But hey, Brentford, would you like Dean Henderson if we take David Wright? It's just come on.
Could happen. That's real.
The wages are different, but all I'm saying is, right,
straight swap.
I think that there are United can be smart here. What they have done this season, Scott McTominay's value is inflated. There's other players. Aaron Wan-Bissaka's value has gone back up from what it was.
Yes.
There's other players in there with interest from Premier League clubs. Victor Lindelof. You can get 15 million from Inter for Victor Lindelof. I'm not dreaming. You know, I know Inter's cash position is bad, but they're going to need to sell. Anyway, look, I'm going down hypotheticals. I don't really want to anymore. But we'll do more of this on future shows. Anyway, let us know in the comments. This show has turned into Maguire and De Gea. Divisive topics, maybe not so much on Maguire. I'm really interested to know your thoughts on David De Gea in your position. Would you renew his contract on 200k a week or whatever it's going to be? Would you do it? What would you do? Who are the options to replace him? We need to turn our attention to Sunday because the season goes on. Luke Shaw looks injured. Rafa Varane injured. Lisandro Martinez injured. Harry Maguire suspended. What do they do at centre-back?
Well, I said to you off camera, I think you might have to put Casemiro at centre-back, and that's something I really didn't want to consider or do. And obviously, you're enforced with Maguire out of there now. Luke Shaw is not going to be fit, is he? We can just see, like, he really struggled. I think when he came on the second half, in hindsight, probably should have saved him and given him a few more days rest to get him ready for Wembley. But yeah, I think that might be the only thing you can do is go with that makeshift defence, keep Lindelof on the left and move Casemiro to centre back. But then that does weaken your number 6 position and kind of you don't have really a credible number 6 that can do the 4-1-5. And if you can't do the 4-1-5, then you might have to go to the 4-3-3 that you reverted to this year to be more tighter and to play more compact. And against a team like Brighton that pass the ball really well, that really, really press well, that get you going, that can do you in transition, you might have to do something completely different, Scott. And that's a tough gig. I don't think Ten Hag will want to do it, but you now might be back to needs must. And do you remember we were saying that only about 3 or 4 weeks ago? Needs must, needs must, needs must. You might have to put Martinez in central midfield. You might have to he didn't do any of those things, did he? He still just did what he does. So I don't think we probably will see Casemiro at centre back, but what's the choices?
It all depends on Luke Shaw's fitness. I think Ten Hag is doing a press conference later today on Friday. I think it's about 5 p.m. or something like that. He's
not fit. He's not fit.
Did he?
Like, it doesn't matter what Ken Ten Hag says. He is not fit. You can see he's not. Rashford is not fit. They're out there putting their bodies on the line because the manager's asking them the question.
Fit. What's the case with McTominay at the moment?
Well, McTominay's not been fit, but that is another option. Obviously, plays centre back for Scotland plenty of times, so you might see that to preserve Casemiro as the 6. So that might be an answer. But these are kind of everything is slim pickings, isn't it? Everything is like, you kind of go, I don't like that. But what does the manager like? What can the manager do? How do you mitigate? Like playing out from the back, is that a problem? Well, you're just going to tell today and knock it in the channel every time. Don't pass through him, David. Knock it in the channel. But tell you what, Erik Ten Hag will not tell his players that. They will not say that, but they might try and play on transition a little bit more. They might try and play with a mid-block. Why does the manager never consider 3 at the back? I've always thought this because
he's done it a few times this season towards the end of games.
Not really. Like, have we really seen it where United have gone to a kind of overt 3-5-2 or something?
Well, I don't have
like
any centre backs currently, so.
But this is it. So 3-5-2 is an option against a team like this Brighton team that will probably play 3-4-3. So you might be able to match up with them. But if they want to run around more than you, Scott, you're probably going to lose. So, like, you need to make those things work as well, don't you? So, really, really difficult call at centre-back and a massively difficult game. I'm scared of this Brighton team. I think they're really good. And they're better than Sevilla. Like, they are 2, 3, 4 times better than Sevilla are.
To me, I think, like what you said on a show we did recently, Rob, it's all about just get the top 4. I don't care anymore about everything else. I think that's it, right? That is the case.
That's it.
Get through Brighton, whatever the result, and just look at the Spurs game next Thursday. And I said this before Newcastle. Don't lose that game. They did.
Yeah.
Don't lose at Spurs. They probably will.
Yeah. The London Marathon's on Sunday, 26 miles, yeah. And the most important thing is finishing it, right? Get to the end of the race, and whatever your personal best was is your personal best. But if you get to the end of the race and you achieve your objective, tick. And that's where I am. And that's where I was last week before the Sevilla game. It's where I've been for a while. And I look at this and I think even coming fourth from this scenario now, if you come fourth and you've won your trophy, I keep saying it, it's a successful season. And you can write off a lot of these problems then. Then you can start trying to fix these things. You can then make considerations about your goalkeeper, about your centre-back, who your striker's going to be. Of course, Man United are already in this process. They're doing it already behind the scenes. We know this. But it's about how hard do you go? How quick can you go to get to where you want to be through the summer? And it showed last year, Scott, like you talked there about all the players Man United bought. It was a slog of a summer, wasn't it? It took hard for them to pull triggers on deals. They had to negotiate hard and they wanted Frankie de Jong and they didn't get Frankie de Jong. It ruined a lot of the equilibrium. If that starts again this year and you do it with an Osman,
They can't do that again.
They
Especially Frankie. They can't do that again.
They can't do it again, but they've absolutely got form of doing it over and over again. So this is what we're worried about. We talk about being ruthless. It's more about being, I think, pragmatic, getting players that you know can do it. And I agree with you. Like, not every goalkeeper has to cost 60 million, but if you want a good goalkeeper, it's going to cost you 40, 50, 60 million. If you get Raya on the cheap, so be it. Great addition. I really like him. But then Raya stepping up from Brentford to Man United might completely change his mindset and he might not look as good a goalkeeper. I do believe that as well. So it's like Harry Maguire looked really good before he came to Man United. Has never looked good at Man United. It's just what it is. So there is that problem. And you've got to make sure that whoever you're bringing in does give you added value. So I don't think that's particularly difficult, but you've got to choose which positions. And for me, it starts at striker, then midfield, and then everything else is fair game for me. Get two really good players, 200 million to 250 million in those two positions. And then you spend another 100 million on the rest. But that's 350 million and Man United are in a lot of debt. So fantasy football. Do you know what I mean? I'm considering this week getting a 4-point deduction because I want to get two players in this week, in this game week. But that's fantasy football. I'm
using my free hit this week, but my season has really tailed off.
Well, there you go. Like, I think both of us were kind of in our leagues, we kind of tailed off a little bit. But that's fantasy football, and you can do that. And there's no risk. And putting your neck on a block doesn't mean anything. But in football, it does. So it's a job. So I think Ten Hag looks at that. And I think he's managed the 12 months really well with what he's had. And I think they will go into the summer. He'll make the additions. But I think he might get rid of some of the players that we might not advocate. I think Jadon Sancho is one of those. And I think we'll be talking about that a lot in the weeks ahead. See him get pulled at half-time last night, Scott. There was a thing there, wasn't there? Manager saying, I don't trust you to take me. We're only 1-0 down. And he didn't trust Sancho. He took Sancho off. And I think that says more to me than him picking De Gea every week. I think it's a more obvious statement of intent than him giving the gloves to De Gea. So I think that's going to be a huge talking point now in the weeks about who goes to facilitate a lot of these transfers. I think Martial and Sancho might be two of the players.
Yeah, all stuff we will find out.
That's exasperating, isn't it? It's like, I can't breathe. It's like,
Sorry, it's been a long one today. Let us know in the YouTube comments or on Twitter what your priority list of player positions. Give us names as well. Why not? It's all a fun game.
Name them. Yes.
Name them. Put a hypothetical price on them if you want. Don't get them too wrong, though. Also, let us know on where you stand on David De Gea. I suppose we've done a lot more on him today than I thought we would at the start. But I think that's just maybe because I've made my mind up. And maybe there are other people who have also made their mind up. And it's like I say, it's a divisive thing for the fan base because he is a club legend. He is a great servant. But like we say, not everyone
don't judge
agrees.
Players on that. Don't judge them on that. Don't judge them on what they have done in the past. Judge them on current and future. That's the way I say it. And I think that's what managers do. Managers look at it and say, can you help me win? Yeah, a lot on De Gea, but there's going to be so much more in it as well, isn't there?
Big week next week. This weekend, FA Cup semi-final versus Brighton. Midweek next week, Tottenham away on Thursday night. I think we're doing 3 shows next week, so we'll be here because we missed one last week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, hopefully, unless anything happens. But that should be the plan. So we'll see you then. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Google, Spotify, and the likes, and watch us on YouTube as well. Give us on the audio platforms as well. Give us like a 5-star rating if you would like to.
Please.
I've never really said that before, but please do it and leave nice comments for us or tell us what you think. on those platforms. Get in touch on YouTube. Head over to the channel, like, subscribe, leave a comment, and follow us on Twitter @_ Sorry, I lost my voice doing that at the start of the show and lost my voice at the end of the show doing that. @_ Scott Saunders, @_ Rob _B, and @PromiseandMU for the show. We'll be back soon. Rob, anything to add before we go?
I was going to try and say something quirky about De Gea then, but there isn't anything really, is there, at the end of the day? Same problems, same issues, but also the same solutions. And I think for me, that Tottenham game coming up, that's the season. That is it. You know, like the other games do matter, of course, but you got to beat Tottenham Hotspur. If you bury Tottenham Hotspur, that is your 6-pointer. And that gets you a long way towards where you want to be on the final day of the season. And that really has to be the focus. I think that's what Ten Hag will be saying. I know Ten Hag talks a lot about every game's important. Of course, that's true. But I think that's how he's looking at this now. How do I make sure that his fires don't rage and burn the whole house down? Because if we come 5th, that League Cup means nothing.
Yeah. Thanks for listening, everyone. Get in touch and we'll see you soon for another Promised Land. Hopefully, Man United play a little bit better on Sunday than they did last night, but I'm not holding out much hope. See you soon.